Alright everybody, this is Nosaj Ttimmed, and welcome to Retro Ttimmed. So in this video I wanted to take a look at some classic flyers, being that this is a retro gaming channel, and I wanted to look at the pricing of games back then to get an idea of how far we've come in a video game community now in modern day, um, how much everything is and compared it to back then. So let's get into this and let's take a look at these flyers. Alright, so I found this website specifically towards gaming, the way it looks. So I guess we could scroll down here and okay. So first things first, we see the original Super Nintendo priced at 170. Now, looking at the games were a lot, a tad bit cheaper, um, but they also ranged in different price. There were different variants of different prices depending on the game. Now, looking at this, let's see if we can zoom in. I can't, but it looks like there's some wrestling games right there that are around the price of $60. Sonic for Game Gear was $34.99. The Game Gear itself was highly priced back then compared to this. This was a home gaming console. This was a handheld console, and I know this because um, I actually had a Game Gear at one point. So let's get into the next one. This next one is basically, so here you have the Sega Genesis. Now this don't make sense to me by looking at this. So looking at this, the Sega Genesis itself with one video game was $100. The controller itself was $20. Now, why this don't make sense to me is the fact that the gaming console is, and if we go back to the last one, it's a lot more than the handheld. That don't make sense to me. But that's just how they priced it back then. And by looking at the games, there was a $60 price on, the NBA. They pretty much ranged them. Their own console games were, looks like they were 60, and then the other ones were 70. Now I don't know how they arranged the prices back then. I don't really understand it. Um, it beats the hell out of me how they arranged these prices. But let's get into the next one. So right here you're gonna save $15 on these titles here. Let's see. Let's see here. The Mickey game was $59.99, which is right here. Save up to $15 on the Super, so you'd be getting a total of a lot less than modern day gaming prices. But the Super Nintendo here was $140, and Star Fox alone was $54. So the gaming, like again, it ranged in different prices. NBA was $64.99, and you got a sale on it. And the controllers were a lot less expensive too, unless you want STD Pro Pad. Okay. Controller for now that's the basic controller. You got a good deal on it, but then you went to like this here, and it just sucked, and you got it for like under $10. That would be awesome to find a controller at that price now. But here you have the more expensive one, the more desirable one. Let's go into the next one. Actually, Street Fighters 2. It looks like. Trying to Mario Kart was 47. So Mario Kart was a lot less than most of the games, and the other one was NCAA basketball, which was dropped down to less than 50, like $45 to be exact. That was a lot cheaper than today. All right, and then we have this next article. Now, looking at the Game Boy Pocket, the Game Boy Pocket back then was cheap. Now, if you look at the price of a Game Boy Pocket, we go to Amazon and just look at the price of a Game Boy Pocket now. So a Game Boy Pocket, oops. So a Game Boy Pocket is around I had this one back then, but it was around, they're around $100. I would love to get my hands on one of these special edition ones. Actually, it'd be pretty cool. But let's get back to the articles because I'm getting off topic there a little bit with that. So, looking at all this, you have this game I never even heard of before, something 64, um, $60. The controllers were a little bit more expensive than today's controllers, like this Nintendo Switch controller and this Xbox controller, both wired ones. They cost $20 depending on what features you're getting out of it. Um, but the classic N64 controller was a lot less expensive. The Game Boy was a lot less expensive, and the games in general, by looking at like a Nintendo 3DS game would have ran for about $60 for the game, which is a little bit overpriced. And then you have this down here, which I wonder if there's a way. No, I guess these are the. I guess these are ones that they lowered the price on these for the Sega Genesis ones. Next one. So here we have the Sega Saturn. Now the Sega Saturn was the first of its kind. It raced the bar in gaming. It went to CD. Um, and if looking at the Nintendo Switch, the smaller model of the Nintendo Switch, you pretty much, I think you're paying. Let's see. The Nintendo Switch Lite. So yeah, you're paying the same amount as a Nintendo Switch Lite as you were back then for the Sega Saturn. Now the Sega Saturn wasn't around very long. It was his last Sega console in general, and we haven't heard anything from them since. But I guess that one's a game. But Mortal Kombat, yeah, all these were around. They were they're a little bit less than what we had um what we have going on now with gaming. Controllers a little bit more expensive, and then the net play, which is that's crazy. They actually offered internet back then on this. That's interesting. And that was $200 alone to gather this, and it looks like you put it in back. I wonder, I want to see if I could get my hands on any of this. It'd be pretty awesome. Test it out. So we have the PlayStation 3. Now the PlayStation 3 wasn't really what I was aiming to talk about here, but back then a PlayStation 3 was $600. I believe the original Xbox came out at around that price. I'm not particularly sure. That's going to be for a different time frame. Let's see. So we got that one. So right here, I don't know why that keeps flickering. It's showing the price of games itself. So the PSP, PlayStation Portable was 200. Games were not expensive on that unless you bought like this one. And I didn't like this wrestling game, so I probably, I know it was like the first one to come out, SmackDown versus Raw, but I was not a fan of it. Um, SOCOM would have been a good choice for that. There's a few games on here very few, that I probably would play. I would not play American Idol, but yeah, there you see the price on that and the price frames. And when you bought when you bought a PlayStation 3, apparently you get gift card instantly when you buy any two PlayStation 3 games. So there you have that. So here we have a Nintendo 64 at $149. Now that was not a bad price, and the Game Boy in general, looking down here, is $49.99. Very very good price. I still remember these things. I actually, these were cool back then. They're not cool now. Back then, things were simple. Everybody has a smartphone now, so nobody gives a fuck about these anymore. Pardon my language. So here we have Sega Master System at $100, which I don't recall that system, but it might be something that never took off. So these are both bundles. The Nintendo bundle was a lot more, and we have a couple games down here included in the system itself. I think this is a bundle. The bundle, and then one of these games alone cost like one of the games cost the price here. The most expensive is The Legend of Zelda because it was such a good game back then. Um, but you see, you got the Rob the Robot, I think his name is, and yeah, I remember playing Duck Hunt in Super Mario. That was so much fun back then. All right, so there's a better look at it. Not really interested. Why does that other one keep flipping up in the background? So here we have another one. The Game Gear was priced at $129. You have cheaper games: poker, solitaire, blackjack, Sega Golf, and then you got these down here, which were way cheaper than most games now. Now, I think these were the discount games because they weren't the games that came out that were like mainly for the system. These up here, I think they were priced based upon how they like these were the bigger name titles back then. So, um, next one. So here we have the Sony PlayStation. Now the Sony PlayStation was the rival or challenger, I could say, to the Nintendo 64. Now, this was the era of who chose what at that point in time and what route you were going when you in the future of video gaming. A lot of people, there were a couple people I knew that had this, and I remember playing Twisted Metal with a friend, Mortal Kombat. Um, didn't play the Madden. We mainly so I never really played Crash, but we played Twisted Metal and Mortal Kombat back then. That's what I remembered. So we have the memory cards. We have the analog stick. I only remember using the controller back then, and I don't know if it was this one or the next console that had the sticks on the controller. So, all right. So we have a Super Nintendo again for 129. And games, as you can see, were priced around a price of 70. We have Mortal Kombat there, Hang Time, Miss Pac-Man, and then the Super Mario and Donkey Kong, which are the more important ones to the console. And then the controller itself, less than 20 again. And you have now we have the Game Boys. So the Game Boy Pockets were priced way less and more affordable back then. Looking at these, the main console games, I guess, depend on what it was. It varies in price. Looking at this down here, we got a couple more slides here. So now we have the Nintendo 64. In the original game that came out for the Nintendo 64, Mario 64, I wanted that game so badly. Like, I was mad. I wanted that game at first, but my family suggested Wave Racing. Now, Wave Racing was pretty decent. Very, very hard to maneuver in that game because it wasn't my forte. I'm not, I like racing games, but I don't like them to the extent where I can sit there and play them all the time. So back then, if I was to choose a game, it would have been this. But we had to go with multiplayer because of my sister being, the person she was a little bit of a brat, but that's not a story I'm going to say here, but she was definitely a brat to certain things. So it was almost $200. So comparing the PlayStation to the Nintendo 64, it was different. I chose the Nintendo 64 because I grew up playing Nintendo. I played Nintendo, and that's what we stuck with, Nintendo. And now to this day, we still have Nintendo products. So, all right. So here, KB Toys. I still remember this place. Yeah, looking at everything, Game Boys were the original Game Boy. The brick was $70, and then you have a lot of games here that are based around you know, these are basically Nintendo games right here, not from the look of it, and these were the other titles that the third-party titles that you know people put on them, but like a lot of people didn't get into them like that. So again, we have it here, the KB Toys, and I guess that's where. Let's go back. Let's go back and see. All right, so here's the Nintendo, regular Nintendo for $90. And you have like games like Tetris and all that, and then you have the joystick, for Maverick 2 joystick for Nintendo. Um, so yeah, the pricing on that was way less than what you see it now, like $20 less. The Xbox 360, and they didn't mention the Xbox too much in these articles, but you can see it here. The Xbox 360, yeah, they ranged in different prices based on memory in it. So, all right, that's about it for this. I want to go back to the big screen now. All right, so there you have it. We looked at some classic video game flyers, and we saw the pricing. And looking at most of the pricing from the N64 era to the yeah, I guess to the Nintendo and Game Boy era, the earlier models before the Nintendo 64 hit, the games were well, no, I'm wrong. Super Nintendo was where they started raising the prices on games because they knew everybody liked them and everybody played them, and that's how we can't complain about the prices on games now. Look, back then, if a game was $70, I'm sure they complained. I'm sure they were like, "This is too much," you know. But we're seeing that now, and we're getting more content out of it. So I think it's suffice that we stop complaining about it and we just embrace it because, as long as it's not going up to like $80, I'm fine with it. We're bringing back the 30 years ago idea that instead of raising it up even further. But that's about it for this. If you like what you saw here, hit like, subscribe to the channel. My Legend of Zelda Majora's Mask Part 2 is coming very soon. Probably in the next week or so I'll have that on here. But if you're enjoying this channel so far, subscribe. I will have more content, and also let me show you my other channel, and then I'll get out of here. All right, so right here is my other channel. I have a lot of content uploaded on it. I just uploaded this video. Looks like Harry Potter Legacy, Hogwarts Legacy, is getting a multiplayer, and I have a bunch of like video game content here too. But it's more like it's video game news instead of me reviewing things. Now there will be reviews on here, but it'll be about newer games. So if you're into if you're into gaming in general, follow both of my channels because they're going to be talking about both things. And let me go back to the big screen again. All right, so there you have it. You got both channels. Take a look at both of them. Please follow Retro Ttimmed and please follow Nosaj Ttimmed. And I will put the link in the description to Nosaj Ttimmed into this video. So, all right, if you like what you saw here again, hit like, subscribe. I'm out of here.